Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Every once in a while, we elect somebody as a representative that actually represents, that even hemp presents. And one of the cool things about HempFest is that we get to come in contact with incredible human beings, warriors of truth, warriors of justice, friends of liberty, which gives me great pleasure to introduce to you right now a champion of truth and liberty. I think one of the most honest politicians we've had in my lifetime. U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich is here to speak to you. Let's hear a warm welcome. Give your love to Dennis Kucinich. Hello, Seattle!
On this day, in this place of great beauty, we celebrate the beauty of nature, and I'm also here to celebrate the wondrous nature of you. The presence that we have here today binds us as a community. It empowers us. It strengthens us. We must become visible en masse if we're going to bring about the change that we want in the society. And when we do that, we extend our reach. We bring about new possibilities. And the creative spark that births action can usher in a new world. We have to say to America, open up, America. Show yourself. Time for mass action. This is why and how recent movements for freedom in Tunisia and Egypt gained momentum. This is how Gandhi cast off the British Empire. This is how America's suffragettes ended up getting for women the right to vote. This is how Dr. Martin Luther King's March on Washington became a pivotal moment in the civil rights history of this country. People become visible. They go to the streets. They linked arms. They marched. They sang, "We shall overcome." They walked the uplit path of social and economic justice. People have been on this path, and it's time for us to begin to walk that path too. People then marched to glory, but not for themselves, but for the benefit of generations to come. We gather here today in a common determination for change. A sense of commonality of purpose awakens. A sense of awareness grows. The moment arrives to exercise a new commitment, to cast off an old order of things. This same awareness brought America's founders to write the Declaration of Independence and to proclaim a new order follows. Today it is not a financial deficit that will bring America down. It is a deficit of public action. When people discover what happens when one person determines to make a difference and then merges with the many like-minded, it becomes visible. New possibilities unfold, and a new order follows. Now, Seattle, you understand this, because in 1999, Seattle hosted the World Trade Organization rallies, and Seattle was the host of the Teamsters and the Turtles marching arm in arm, not too far from this area, demanding, once and for all, that we have enforceable workers' rights, human rights, environmental quality principles in all of our trade agreements. They marched and they chanted and they said, not only we shall overcome, but solidarity forever, solidarity for workers. The Seattle WTO cast light upon the workings of the WTO. Seattleites, union members, trade activists helped spark a worldwide awareness, that workers had to have rights, and that there had to be environmental quality principles. And it was the people of Seattle who identified that child labor, slave labor, and prison labor had to be in trade, that prohibitions on that had to be in trade agreements. Seattle brought that forward. You kept that alive. You've nurtured it. Large, intentional gatherings like this one can be a catalyst for powerful change. But we have to be prepared, as George Bernard Shaw once wrote, to dream things that never were and ask why not. And let us dream about the America that we want. Let us give our dreams some firmament. Let our dreams and our thoughts become words. Let the words become deeds. Let our deeds become action. Let our actions build a new America and a new world. Seattle, you shook the world once. Can you shake it again? I ask you. Are you ready here, Seattle? to declare once and for all that it's time for America to end the wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and Libya. Are you ready to do that? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that our troops be brought home? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that America end its worldwide military presence? Yeah. Are you prepared to demand that America must lead the way to nuclear abolition? Yeah. Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand that we have to repeal the Patriot Act? Yeah. Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand that government spying, eavesdropping, and wiretapping of law-abiding citizens must end? That our sisters' right to privacy be protected and decisions about women's reproductive health be made between a woman and her doctor? Are you prepared, Seattle, to say that our brothers and sisters who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered have all full rights, including the right to marry? Are you prepared, Seattle, to demand the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana and demand hospitalization, not incarceration, for those with drug problems? Are you prepared to demand not-for-profit health care for all? Yes! Education for all? Yes! Retirement security for all? Yes! Jobs for all? Yes! Are you prepared to rescue our federal government from corporate interests by calling for a constitutional amendment which establishes only public financing of federal elections? Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to summon the energy to rescue our planet, to protect our air, our water, and our land from further exploitation by demanding an end to drilling the earth, fracking the earth, cracking the earth, and an end to the poisoning of our seas and our skies, and to make sure that we end this carbon-based solution and bring forward a rapid transition to an environmentally friendly, socially responsible green economy? Seattle, this day, here and now, you, through your responses, have voiced what I would call the Seattle Declaration. Let the sound of your voice today be heard wide and far. Let your affirmations give birth to new actions, a new nation, and a new world. Let your voice once again cause America to march. Let your voice once again cause America to sing. Let your voice cause America to seek new freedoms. Let your voice call America to seek a newer world. Ours is a restless quest for freedom. We know wars make us less free. We know fear makes us less free. Social and economic insecurity makes us less free. If it is for freedom's sake that we gather, so then let us be for freedom's sake that we act courageously. Because it is our desire for change that carries extraordinary power to become more than we are, better than we are. Forged in the human heart, ignited by love and a passion for transformation, our common unity, our common purpose, and our common action can carry the power to change everything. This is the power of human unity. This is the power of our oneness. Feel it. Own it. Act upon it, Seattle. Thank you.
In between the blues, there are good days and bad days, with everything and nothing to lose. While the setting sun never sits, and the night has no limits. The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA, needs THC.
Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns. Like a grass fire.
In the unnatural society, been trying to maintain, while the sane appear to be clearly insane, with no way to explain. Outlasting the great lie, a sparking spark does my mind. Grass fire, pulling the sky, breathing in sativa's design.
Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns. It's a grass fire.
The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA needs THC. Dreaming of long times past, all that those times brought. Looking to the heart of tomorrow. Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns.
It's been used by human beings since the dawn of time. Early man's diet undoubtedly included cannabis, since it grew prolifically in Africa and Asia and was highly nourishing due to its protein and omega-3 content. Marijuana may well have been the first cultivated plant. There's speculation that Stone Age man may have used the wild herb to speed up his language skills. The use of new tools, new materials, cave art, and musical instruments. What created this sudden improvement? Some scientists propose that marijuana could have opened the door to greater consciousness in Mesolithic man. New research suggests that the early humans who regularly consumed cannabis may have enhanced their brain functions and might have possibly triggered a great leap forward. But that's all conjecture. What we do know is that cannabis is still inspiring new discoveries and a deeper understanding of the nature of health and disease.
This group of chemicals has significant anti-tumor properties.
Now, cannabinoids kill cancer cells in many cases.
They have anti-tumoral effects.
There's nothing else that impacts on so many of our illnesses.
We know that it kills cancer cells without hurting the non-transformed cells.
In recent years, the hemp plant has been proven to be anti-inflammatory, antispasmodic, and antibacterial. It can treat depression, traumatic stress syndrome, chronic pain, glaucoma, migraines, multiple sclerosis, Tourette's, nausea, and a host of other ailments without the unwanted side effects of pharmaceutical drugs. Historical evidence shows that the holy anointing oil used by Old Testament Hebrews contained cannabis extract. The early Christians used cannabis as part of their baptismal process. In the 1800s, medical journals published more than 100 articles on the therapeutic use of the drug, then known as cannabis indica, or Indian hemp. Cannabis was often prescribed by doctors and was part of every medical bag right through the early part of the century. It was a popular treatment for labor pains, asthma, rheumatism, and nervous disorders. It was even given to cranky babies to get them to stop crying. Queen Victoria, who lent her name to the repressive Victorian era, was also a bit of a pothead. The Queen found that cannabis was the only remedy that helped her painful menstrual cramps. Britannia could rule the waves a lot easier when she was high. But then the dark days for pot began in the early part of the 20th century, with the advent of chemically created drugs and an emerging profit-driven assembly line medical system. The new order didn't want competition, and cannabis was still preferred by many patients and doctors to the new miracle drugs, which were composed mainly of unnatural toxic substances. After lobbying by the pharmaceutical industry and fear-mongering misinformation by their donation-dependent allies in Congress, a federal law was passed in 1937 that prohibited doctors from prescribing pot in any circumstances under threat of prosecution, even though it was strongly opposed by the American Medical Association of its day. All cannabis products were removed from the U.S. Pharmacopoeia and the National Formulary by 1942. After alcohol was re-legalized, rather than go out of business, the massive bureaucracy of prohibition turned its operation to marijuana eradication.
It was Harry Anslinger, who was a racist, who was the head of the Federal Narcotics Bureau. He had been a prohibitionist, and then when prohibition ended, they gave him a new job, and he was in every president's government from Roosevelt to Kennedy. Harry Anslinger was concerned that the use of marijuana by black and Latino jazz musicians was going to lead to increased crime and increased mental illness in the United States.
The Treasury Department intends to pursue a relentless warfare against the despicable, dope-peddling vulture who preys on the weakness of his fellow man.
This war on cannabis lasted until just a few years ago, when states started passing their own medical marijuana initiatives in order to once again provide pot safely to patients. California was the first U.S. state to pass a medical marijuana law in 1996. The intent was to give relief to patients suffering from chronic pain, AIDS, cancer, and other illnesses. Since 1996, 13 other American states have passed similar compassionate use laws. 12 more have ballot measures or legislation pending. Although cannabis smoke has been shown to have precancerous effects in animal tissue, countless studies have failed to find a link between cannabis smoking and cancer, and in fact have shown that heavy marijuana users have considerably fewer cancers than the general population.
I get a nice little buzz from it.
That buzz comes courtesy of the federal government. An Oregon woman says she's part of a little-known government program that supplies her with free marijuana. Since the mid-1970s, the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program has been supplying free, legal cannabis to a handful of people. The program officially ended in 1992, but 4 patients still receive pot. Our Christina Nelson sat down with the Eugene woman who is part of that program.
You might call it her morning routine. With her lighter in hand, 72-year-old Elvie Musica gets a cannabis buzz every day, courtesy of the federal government.
It does give you a push. It makes you... The high is nothing but feeling good about things.
This grandmother, who uses cannabis for her glaucoma, is part of a very unique club.
These are the tins that the government sends to the University of Miami, and I have to go there and see my doctor, pick up a prescription.
Since 1988, Musica has been getting more than 3.5 pounds of pot every year from the federal government for free.
This is what they send me. I call them my green Pall Malls.
She's part of the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program. It started in 1976 after a man sued the government, claiming only pot helped his glaucoma. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, or NIDA, provided rolled joints for sick people until the first Bush administration halted it in 1992.
But every single one of us had to have reliable doctors that they would count on, extensive medical records. I eventually became the first woman to join the two men who were smoking legally at the time.
The program has been closed for almost 20 years, but the FDA still allows the remaining 4 patients, including Musica, to receive the free cannabis.
And I'm just so glad I found this. I really take it in a spirit of Thanksgiving every single day, and I do.
Christina Nelson tells us the marijuana is grown at the University of Mississippi and then it's taken to Florida, where Musica picks it up every year. She is also an Oregon medical marijuana card holder and receives pot through the state as well.
I spent 26 years in the New Jersey State Police. 14 of those years I was undercover in narcotics. As a former police officer, I believe that the prohibition of marijuana is one of the most ridiculous abuses of our allocation of police staff and money that we could possibly have. We could be allocating our resources toward protecting folks from violent criminals, from child molesters, from drunk drivers, people who are going to kill people. People who are using marijuana are not violent people. Ask any cop whether they would rather go on a call where they know people are high on marijuana or whether they would rather go on a call where people are high on alcohol. They'll choose marijuana every time.
In 2005, the Sentencing Project, a national research organization focused on sentencing laws and incarceration, issued a report that looked at the war on drugs during the 1990s. We talked to one of its authors about their findings.
What was so surprising that came out of this study was to find the level of resources that were dedicated to pursuing low-level marijuana offenses. I think conventional wisdom across the country is that our drug war is going after importers and high-level dealers, distributors, and that the federal system, which is designed specifically to bring the rich natural resources to bear upon international and high-level drug trafficking, that in fact, very large proportion of these resources were being funneled towards low-level drug users and people in possession of primarily marijuana. In fact, what the war on drugs really looks like is shaking down kids in the street, grabbing people pulled over on the side of the road, and finding very, very small quantities of marijuana, bringing them into the system, filling out paperwork, a couple of hours of law enforcement time dedicated to paperwork. And I think that most Americans have no idea that that is where their very precious resources are being directed.
What is cannabis? Cannabis, of course, is a medicine.
I think it's important to say that no medication is going to work for everybody all the time.
It's a specific for migraines, it's a specific for seizures.
The take on the plant is that it's symbiotic with the human.
If you can get something that's natural, that has literally zero side effects.
It works as almost a ubiquitous inhibitor of a lot of systems in the brain.
The science is absolutely clear. The pharmaceuticalization of cannabis is just beyond the horizon.
I think it's easier for men to come out and say they support it because women have a lot more on the line. You know, if they're mothers, then they have their kids on the line.
So I tried it, and at first, it freaked me out. I had a few panic attacks.
We know that cannabis can prevent Alzheimer's, and if it can reduce all these ailments and keep your stress level low, that adds years to your life before you're even sick.
And so the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate fascists need SOBs. vilified the cannabis plant.
We're all grown up now. We're not in the closet anymore. We don't give a fuck what you think. We smoke marijuana.
But once you just let go with it and just be, it does so many things.
This consciousness opens the doors to perception, expands consciousness, and puts you in a receptive state.
I like to say when I give lectures, I start off by saying I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
Part of what we're doing with Oregon NORML is trying to maximize the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act and try to help the patients that truly need the medicine.
America's ready for a change in the marijuana laws. We're reached critical mass to change this critical mass.
Let's hope we can all live together in peace and harmony, love, and legalize marijuana, for God's sake.
Well, here's a little song that you might get along with, all about a natural seed growing wild by the side of the roadway. It's nature's a wonderful weed. Been around so long, it's hard to tell why anyone would think it's new. Love it or hate it, however you relate it, I'll leave that up to you. But isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. History's locked in a cardboard box and it's hard to take a look, with sidetracked frills and fantasies all written all over the book. Everybody tells you what to think and they've got their reasons why. You gotta pick reality up by the scruff of the neck and look it right in the eye. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Now the same people that are spreading the fear, the same people that scare me the most. You know, some of them look like they just as soon like they're hanging from a lamppost. They talk about what it does to your brain. Well, I just have to react, cause Hitler never touched this stuff, and that's an actual fact. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. George Washington was the father of our country, and he had a hemp plantation. Betsy Ross used it to make the flag that flew above the baby nation. They wrote their declarations on paper from that same hemp fiber press, and I don't know what they smoked when they were taking a break, but I got a pretty good guess. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Just might make you smile. Use a seed oil in your engine, it'll lubricate the miles. Glaucoma and chemotherapy, they say it smooths out the track. So next time you meet a cancer patient, ask them what they think about that. Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. I don't know why some people get so upset when you say to legalize it. They'd rather build more jails, arrest more people, and spread more crazy lies. It's like talking to a brick wall. You know, they just don't get the facts. I think they ought to try a little of that Betsy Ross. It just might help them relax. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. So I'll be on my way now. Guess I've taken just about enough of your time. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like my state of mind, but I got mine and you got yours. We give what we can take. So next time I need a breather, well, I might just take a little smoke break. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me.
I am a travel writer, and for me, High is a place. It's a beautiful place. It's a place where my speakers sound better. It's a place where suddenly I'm a good cook, where conversations slither around like stray cats, and then once in a while I like to go there, and a lot of people do. Now, there are cases when our government can say we can't go someplace. But if they say we can't go there, there better be a good reason. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no good reason for our government to tell us we cannot go to that beautiful place. Today, 80,000 Americans are in jail because they wanted to go to that place called High. I believe that the responsible adult recreational use of marijuana is a civil liberty. Now, I'm not promoting marijuana. It's a drug. It's not healthy. It can be abused. It can be addictive. It's certainly not for kids. And if you're caught driving intoxicated by anything, as far as I'm concerned, they should throw the book at you. But that doesn't deny the basic principle that enjoying marijuana is a civil liberty. Now, our government is waging a war, a long, losing, expensive, demoralizing war against marijuana based on fears and lies. It's demoralizing our police force. It's eroding and corroding necessary credibility among parents and teachers to teach their children how to get through the threats of hard drug abuse in their young years. It's wasting billions of dollars, and it's messing up literally hundreds of thousands of lives. 800,000 Americans were arrested last year for marijuana. They're not rich white guys. They're poor people and people of color and people who cannot go through life with that burden. This is a scourge on our society, and it's time that we have a new approach. Now, I inject a European perspective to this, and in Europe, a joint is about as exciting as a can of beer. Europe has its drug abuse problems. We have our drug abuse problems. But in Europe, they measure the effectiveness of their drug policies not by how many people do you lock up, but by a concept called harm reduction. How do you minimize harm that this drug causes to a society? And they found that if you take the crime out of the equation, take the violence, take the money out of the equation, then it becomes a health concern and an education challenge. My friends in Europe constantly remind me that a society has to make a choice. Tolerate alternative lifestyles or build more prisons. Here in the United States, we've decided to opt for the latter. And my friends in Europe always follow up that comment by reminding me that we here in the United States lock up more people than anybody else in the world. We lock up 8 times as many people per capita as the Europeans do. Either we are inherently more criminal or there's something messed up about our laws. Now, our drug policy is based on fear and misinformation. For how long has our government been spending money on reefer madness propaganda? Consequently, there's a whole bunch of people that are really afraid. There's a lot of people that think there's a whole reservoir of people that just wish they could ruin their lives if only it was legal. Well, in Europe, they've learned that there is not that reservoir of people that would use marijuana if only it was legal. In Portugal, they decriminalized the consumption of all drugs 10 years ago. They just did a review of that policy, and you know, they like it. Use does not go up, the crime is out, it becomes a little more boring, and life goes on. There's a lot of Americans that are also afraid of this gateway drug notion. One toke of marijuana and you're on the way to heroin addiction. Well, Europe has learned it's not the case. In the Netherlands, it's been 25 years since they arrested somebody for smoking marijuana, and what they've found is that there's not an increase in hard drug use. Their drug-taking population is staying the same in numbers, and it's getting older in demographics. Because people who want to experiment with drugs, which is something that kids do, they do it in their 20s, and then they get over it, and they get back on with other kind of things that are exciting to them. And it's just a way of life in Europe. And the only thing gateway about marijuana is its illegality, because when it's illegal, people have to buy it from criminals in the street who have a vested interest in getting you hooked on something that's more addictive and more profitable. We need to take a hard look at our drug laws, and it's so exciting to have a celebration like this. HempFest is a great celebration of cannabis culture, but I'll tell you, if we want to legalize this, we got to mobilize. We got to get serious. We got to stop preaching to the choir and take it out to the suburbs where people are afraid of this stuff. We have hard-working advocacy groups. I'm a board member of NORML. I've been that for 10 years. These groups are fighting a dogged and difficult campaign on each of our behalves. They're not charities, they're services, and they're doing our work for us. And you know, there's some initiatives going on. I am so proud to be a co-sponsor of initiative I-502. Now, I know that this discourages and disappoints a lot of idealists that want marijuana to be completely free and legal, but that's not going to pass in the voting booth. That would pass here, but it's not going to pass out there. We need something pragmatic as a first step. Please learn about this. This is a smart law. This is a law that has elected officials behind it. This is a law that's not scary. It deals head-on with the reasons Prop 19 failed. And if we can stay together, we can pass this thing. I-502 has a booth, 100 yards right over there. You'll see it. I'm over there later on today. We'd love to get volunteers to get out there and get signatures. We got to get 240,000 signatures to get this thing on the ballot. And trust me, once it's on the ballot, it will pass. Most people out there want to know about driving problems, and they want to know about how you're going to retail and all these boring facts. This is our first step towards legalizing marijuana. It's going to happen in Washington, and then you can tell your grandchildren you helped change those laws. That's exciting. Yep. Now, we're at a crossroads in our society. Think about the 1930s when courageous people were stepping up about the laws against alcohol and saying, you know, this law is causing more problems than it's helping. And Mayor LaGuardia said back in the 30s, if you got a law in the book that you don't intend to enforce consistently across the board, the very existence of that law erodes respect for law enforcement in general. Today, we've got a law in the books that is eroding respect for law enforcement. They got no intention of enforcing it. If they locked us all up, tomorrow would be one less interesting, less creative place to call home, wouldn't it? I want you to know that I'm a hard-working, kid-raising, church-going, tax-paying citizen of the United States. And if I work all day and want to go home and smoke a joint, that's my civil liberty. If you agree with that, get with us, make a difference. We've got a window with I-502, all right? And then we can get beyond hard on drugs and soft on drugs. And as a society, we can be smart on drugs, all right? Thank you very much. Happy travels, even if you're just staying home, all right?
Every day's a new day, Billy boy. The way things are going, they're bound to turn. So you learn to do the skip step, well, yours. If you stumble, you're bound to crash and burn. If you ain't got it all the time, start with just a little. Got to start somewhere and pick yourself up. Always go just the way you plan it, Willie boy. You know the things ain't always right. We who want it, we're caught up in a fight. But we who love life, we're caught up in a hope. Cause we see through the veil and we know how to cope. So keep your head, oh, make your bed. Things are what they are, no need to feel dread. They say that it's dark just before the dawn. So hold your vibe and you'll get along. Every day's a new day, Billy boy. The way things are going, they're bound to turn. So you learn to do the skip step, what yoy. If you stumble, you're bound to crash and burn. If you ain't got it all the time, you start with just a little. Time to start somewhere and pick yourselves up. Things don't always go just the way that you planned it, Willie boy. No worry, no hurry now, Billy boy. No worry, no hurry now, Billy boy. Billy boy. Roll me a spliff. Yes, I'd love to have a whiff. Twist me up a bud so I can rub this dub. Crank us up a dupe. We'll be rocking in the groove. You just roll it. Time to get yourself up on this one-way length and let your feet do the play. I mean, we're speaking for this feeling, so what up anyway? Hey, roll me a spliff. Yes, I'd love to check it with. Whisk me up a bud so I can rub this dub. Crank me up a dupe. We'll be rocking in a deep, deep groove if you just roll it. on this one-way length and let your heart do the pay. I mean, we're speaking for this feeling, so what the, anyway? Hey, roll us a split. Yes, we'd love to check it with. Twist me up the bud so I can rub this in dub. Crank us up a tube. We'll be rocking in a deep, deep groove if you just roll it.
Oh, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Johnny Hart, take it to me, baby. So listen close, y'all. I'm smiling, crying, and biding my time. I keep singing, man, I'm bringing the dopest of rhymes. And though our leaders are all liars, ain't no need to be pining. Just pass the jug of wine and y'all see. You know, I got to thinking while we're drinking and we're shrinking the town. Chief and Sheba, come on, Arriba, hey, let's pass that around. While the owners of this country, they're tearing it all down to the ground. Now, they ain't making a single sound, but they can't silence me. 'Cause who knows, someday I just might be famous, but more likely end up looking like a damned ignoramus. Blow the glass and we'll grow the grass the good Lord done gave us. It's all that can save us now. All that can save us now. Oh, yeah. We position for a mission that we must undertake to gain favor. Now don't waver, 'cause there's so much at stake. And though our leaders slowly bleed us, man, how much are we gonna take, y'all, for Joseph and Mary's sake? When are we gonna wait? 'Cause who knows, someday we all might be famous. Find 10,000 like-minded crazies to blame us. Blow the glass and we'll grow the grass that the good Lord done gave us. It's all that can save us now. Oh, I said, who knows? someday we all might be famous, fly right by the moon and go circle Uranus and blow the glass and we'll grow the grass the good Lord done gave us. It's all I can say of us. Oh, no. Now, I'm gonna back it down just a notch. Now listen close, see, you ever been to a drunken brawl? You know the kind where the cops get called. There's always someone getting hauled away to jail, yeah. Huh. You ever see a stoner picking a fight to maybe crack a couple skulls on a Saturday night? Yeah, me neither. I doubt you ever will. They've been lying to you. So now please dig my little truth, y'all. Somebody tell me what's the fuss about? We're just a band of hippies that want to burn one down, and then we'll eat, and then we'll fuck, we'll probably fall asleep, or maybe drive the truck 10 miles beneath the speed limit. I don't get it, tell me what's the fuss about? Oh yeah, oh yeah, I got to know. You know, I really hoped when I wrote the song that the message would be real strong, so some folks, they might one day understand now, yeah, that alcohol has killed so many more than green bud ever will. Look who's keep on score, you know, a matter of fact, you can't OD on weed, they've been lying to you. Dig my little truth, somebody tell me what's the fuss about? We're just a band of hippies that want to burn one down, and then we'll eat, and then we'll fuck, we'll probably fall asleep, or maybe drive the truck 10 miles beneath the speed limit. I don't get it, tell me what's the fuss about? Yeah. Can somebody tell me what's the fuss about? You know, we're just a band from Spokane that's got to burn some down, and then we'll eat, and then we'll fuck, we'll probably fall asleep, maybe drive the truck 10 miles beneath the speed limit. I don't get it, tell me what's the fuss about? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Said who knows, someday just might be famous, but walk right by the moon and go circle Uranus and blow the glass and we'll grow the grass the good Lord done gave us. It's all that can save us. Oh, I'm Tommy G from the 509. These are the Legends After 11. We thank you, Hempstock. Thank you so much for having us. And we're looking to come forward to coming out and party with you guys. Stick around. We're going to.
Thanks. And we've come down with another show here with just a couple minutes. We're going to jump over, and Tim Pate's going to play some music. We're going to play some more pictures from our THCF Medical Garden. I'd like to remind you to please support our petition drive at that web address. We need your support, and we're trying to put it on the ballot to end adult marijuana prohibition and restore industrial hemp. So thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. We're going to be having tape shows for the first 2 weeks on the 7th and the 14th of October. So you won't want to come down to the studio on the 7th or the 14th of October, but we will be playing videotapes on our cable system. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.